Hey there.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing well, doing well.
Good to see you.
Likewise, likewise. You
I'm glad
you
that we're
ready?
finally getting together. Yeah.
Excellent. I'm gonna go ahead and hit start. I've got myself on IG and we're just gonna have a conversation.
Awesome.
Is your person gonna get on?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't texted her. I've had such a busy day today. Okay.
All right, all right. Well, listen, everyone, I'm gonna go ahead and pin and we'll have us a wonderful opportunity just to connect and give you guys an opportunity just to really get a view from financial professionals and our perspective on just what's going on in today's world, the economy, and kind of how we make our decisions. And so, give me 1 second. There we go. Let's see here. All right, all right. Well, great evening, everyone. My name is Nate Scott. I'm the author of Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth. And tonight I have a great opportunity just to connect. And I'm doing something very special. You know, so many times people are getting information and they don't really know who they can trust. They don't know the people's background, experiences, and more importantly, how they made their decisions to make choices that are oftentimes available to everyone, but because of how you're making decisions, you may not have all the different experiences to help you to make informed decisions. And so I've learned that sometimes people are just better served by just being flies on the wall to get actual honest conversations and just eavesdrop. And as a result of doing so, you may end up finding out some things that make you say, hmm, I never thought of that. And then it also creates the opportunity for you to then go back and be inquisitive, to be curious, because there's nothing worse than being a broke skeptic. Think about that. There's nothing worse than being a broke skeptic. And I don't mean just financially, I'm talking about emotionally, relationally, spiritually, all of those areas. Inevitably, there's some degree of brokenness that keeps you from actually delving in and being curious. You can be skeptical, but be curious and skeptical. Look for the information so that in turn you can prove that what you had skepticism about to be true. You know, my investment philosophy is that I like to make good money off of bad numbers. Good money off of bad numbers. I will absolutely do all that I can do to prove something to be wrong. So I have to walk away from it because once I've actually seen it on paper and I've said, now, if I can dig into this thing and I see that everything proves to be true, I've got to do it. And that's what I want to instill in each one of you tonight. So tonight I have the great opportunity to have a conversation with Susan Dampier. We're here in Jacksonville, Florida. We have a commonality in our professional backgrounds, as well as we're connected as a result of making a decision to bring ourselves into a community of other like-minded people because it just made sense. And so what I will do is facilitate a conversation. You'll hear both of our stories, and then we're just going to play back and forth as we discover one another. You guys have an opportunity to also get the chance to learn about us. So, Susan, I want to say welcome, and I would love to just open it up for you to introduce yourself, and then we'll play it from there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me here with you this evening. And I'm so honored, truly, because we see each other all the time, but oftentimes when we see each other, it's like 3,000 miles away from home. So it's good to finally connect when we're here. But yeah, I live here in Jacksonville. I am a mom of six. I am a financial services professional. I've worked in the financial services industry my whole life. Going back to when I was 19 years old, I was a bank teller, and then I walked across the street to a brokerage firm and started working there at Merrill Lynch back in 1996. So I've worked in that industry, for almost the last 30 years. And, what I've found over time is that, having a job and a career and something that inspires you, that you can go to every day, that makes you happy, is something that's truly so far and in between. I see people all the time that, they get up every day, they go to jobs that they absolutely can't stand, and they do it simply because they need money, right? They have bills to pay. So I've been very blessed that I've always really enjoyed what I do. But interestingly enough, about 8 years ago, I found myself in a position where I had just gotten married to my husband. We decided that we were going to have a family. And when we looked at our budget at the end of the day, it was almost impossible to add a child into our life. So it was at that point that I found entrepreneurship. And that was something that changed, radically changed our life forever.
And where are you from, Susan?
Originally from New Jersey. I grew up there until I was about 11. Then I moved down to Central Florida and grew up in beautiful Cocoa Beach for about a decade, and then back up to New Jersey. And then I landed here in North Florida back in 2000.
Got it. And how did you actually find yourself into the financial profession? How did you get in there?
So I was a young single mom. I was, I think I was 20 years old. And I just wanted a job that I could have insurance for me and my daughter. That was the driving factor for me to get a job working in a bank. So I got a job as a bank teller. And I think at the time I was making like $16,000 a year. And I thought that I had like struck it rich. And I did that for about a year. And the guys across the street from Merrill Lynch used to come and cash their paychecks every week. And they said, "What are you doing over here? You need to come work across the street." So walked across the street, got a job. And, fortunately at that time, I never had a college education. So at that time in that industry, just going and getting all your securities licenses, it was almost like creating a degree within that industry. So simply by, working really hard and getting all my insurance licenses and securities licenses, I was very fortunate enough that I was able to, work my way up the career ladder in that industry and create a really great career for myself. But I never had a college degree, never had any formal education. But it was, it all worked out for the best because I was able to really create something special in that space.
That sounds like they saw something in you to invite you or to give you a heads up about another opportunity. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I'm somebody who's very outgoing and, I always go the extra mile. So no matter who it is or any interaction that I'm having, I always like to really authentically connect with the people that I'm engaging with. And I really always, went out of my way to make sure that when they, came to my window, I made that interaction special. So it was, in that industry, obviously, in any industry really, when you have somebody who is client facing, it's really important to make sure that that person makes, a lasting first impression. So I think that that was probably what got my foot in the door over there.
Yeah, well, that corresponds with a couple of things that I teach as an executive and business coach. One is you are the asset, and number two, um, that money follows value. And what it sounds like is that where you were at, you were doing over and above, and consequently, your disposition was a thing that was attractive to others. You gave them a positive experience. And as a result of that, they recognized you as a person of value. And consequently, they wanted to have you in their space because they knew that that type of disposition could actually give you more than what you were getting in the place in which you were at.
Absolutely, for sure.
So that
Okay.
excites me in hearing that because, you know, I'm sure that you come into contact with people and you see things about them. And as a result, you too invite them to experience something that you're aware of and consequently try to give them an opportunity as someone did for you in the very beginning.
Oh, for sure, definitely. And I think that's something that is what makes what we do in our industry and what we do professionally now more exciting because it's always, we have the opportunity to see something in someone that they might not see in themselves. Like I never in a million years thought that that's where I would land. And even in what we do professionally together, I never in a million years saw myself here. But it was my husband that saw me as being an entrepreneur, and I never thought that I would ever be an entrepreneur ever.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. You know, and even that term entrepreneur, I tell people that entrepreneurship is simply problem solving.
Yes,
You know, entrepreneurship is something that's inside of all of us because we're doing it and we've been doing it through and through. But oftentimes we have this idea of it based upon something that may have been in a textbook. And because someone had degrees and they were speaking about it in a certain way, or we found people doing something the way they were doing it and put a label on it, but never did the due diligence to really understand well what it really is. And that's the
absolutely.
way I really do a lot of my work. And I'm loving being able to connect the dots because for me, those things jump out at me.
Yes.
I my backstory, I'm originally from a small town outside of Savannah, Georgia. And I grew up playing basketball with the desire of playing college basketball. I started thinking about financial independence as a 10th grader in high school because of the life of which I experienced with my dad being a very hard worker and working swing shift, but never being able to get to my games. And so
Mm,
consequently, that had an impact on me, not in a negative way, but in a way of saying I can appreciate the hard work and being a provider, but I also know that this is what I want for my life when it comes to being a parent. And
mm,
so I threw myself into athletics. When my basketball scholarship fell through coming out of high school, I turned down my academic scholarships and enlisted in the Army. I knew that my goal of financial independence was down two lanes, either real estate or business. And so when I enlisted in the Army, I continued to play sports. As soon as I got to my unit, I enrolled in college courses. And as a result of that, one of my professors, her husband was a West Pointer. She knew my company commander, and they approached me about the idea of going to West Point. I had
mm,
no intention of going to West Point, but I got the paperwork continuously being put in front of me. The opportunity was being presented. And I said, well, I'll continue to go down that rabbit hole with the opportunity. Well, one day I got the knock on the door in Germany for us going to Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
mm,
I found myself at 19 walking perimeter during Operation Desert Storm, where I said, Lord, if you allow me to make it back, I'll never waste a day of my life. And that was a defining moment for me that in turn caused me to really hone in on understanding life isn't promised and that if I was blessed to be able to make it back, that I was going to live each day as if I didn't know when it was going to be taken away. And
mm.
so I came to New Jersey. I went to Fort Monmouth. The prep school was in New Jersey, Fort Monmouth, New Jersey.
That's where I'm from.
Are you really?
Yeah. I'm from Red Bank, right up the street.
Ah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
How about that? So yeah,
Yeah.
I was there in 91 to 92.
Oh, wow.
That's
That's amazing.
when I got back stateside. Yep. And so on February 26, 1992 at 10:30 a.m., I wrote out a Benjamin Franklin T, pros and cons, and made a decision to go to West Point. And so went on to West Point and graduated with degrees in engineering and sociology. But the week that I graduated from West Point is when I got introduced to personal growth and development and entrepreneurship via network marketing. Now, Susan, I was never drawn into the opportunity. I was getting ready to go into my career as an infantry officer, ranger, but what was lasting for me was that I never knew about picking up books and going to seminars. And so as I've spoken around the world, I tell people take on my West Point degree, take on my MBA from George Washington, finance planning from Georgetown. When I learned to pick up books and go to seminars and be around successful people, that's what laid the foundation for everything else I've done in my life. It was even that experience that really taught me how to read the Bible as a practical manual. And so
Mm,
that's the thing I really take forward is that I've got a track that many people have been told to go down and a path to follow. But I was 25 years old when I learned about personal growth and development, and that blew my mind. And consequently, that's the thing that I always want people to really get informed about because of the value that comes at such a great value with such a low investment because of the amazing people and amazing experiences that you have in addition to the opportunities that one can participate in. But if nothing else but being in the community is so invaluable because that then gives you an opportunity to truly transform your life. So, Susan, tell me, how did you actually get introduced to the world of network marketing?
So it was back in 2016 when we were about to have a baby. And it was honestly, it was one of those things that, it was almost like I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because I worked in a financial office, and one of the financial advisors that I work with had lost weight, and my husband wanted to lose weight. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" And she shared it with me, and I shared it with my husband. And I'm just a natural helper by nature. So when he started having an incredible experience, I just started telling everyone about it, not even realizing that there was a compensation plan attached to it. And, it just sort of evolved from there. And at the time, I really didn't have any belief in myself. Up until this point, I was 41. I had never picked up a personal development book ever. So, to your point, it's incredible that you had such an early start. I was in my 40s. And I certainly make sure that my kids now, read personal development books because that is such a huge blessing. But I got curious, like you said, be curious. And I didn't have any belief in myself or my ability. I was a consummate employee. I thought that I would, work until I was 65 and collect my social security and live off my 401k. But it was at that point where my husband said, "Listen, this is something that is right up your alley. You love to help people and you do it so naturally." So it wasn't something that was really forced to want to share it, but what was forced was finding the belief in myself that I had the ability to do that. So, that's something that I think is really critically important for everyone to understand is that, when you see somebody who's successful in whatever capacity that may be, they didn't just, some people might just have an infinite knack for something, but most people have to work really hard at it. So I had to work really hard on just building that belief muscle in myself and just knowing that, to your point that you said earlier, when you are an entrepreneur, all you're doing is problem solving. You're giving somebody a solution to a problem that they have. So when I was able to take myself out of that equation and really make it all about the person on the other end, that changed everything for me. And then it was just off to the races.
The way I describe it and define something that oftentimes people run away from, which is sales,
Right.
is I say that sales is helping people to understand the logic and the benefit of making a decision or taking an action.
Right.
Helping people to understand the logic and the benefit of making a decision or taking an action.
I love
And
that.
if you can put that on for yourself, it changes everything.
Yes.
Because now you're in a space of realizing that you're not about trying to get people. You
Right.
literally are inquisitive and you're listening and you're hearing, you're reflecting back, and then say, well, based on what you said, if I were able to help you with that, would you want that answer?
Right.
Do I have permission to share this with you? And so it is a natural thing if you have a servant's heart. And when I share about this whole thing, and as you just now communicated about something that just is innately in you and that someone else recognize it, I am and have been on this mission of fulfilling that vow that I took when I was walking the perimeter of, Lord, if you allow me to make it back, I know waste of my life. That was the birth of Life is Rich. Life is Rich Global, which is my company, was birthed out of that experience. And Life is Rich means I live in fullness every day. Life, live in fullness every day, because I realize I am Christ's heir.
Mm.
Realize I'm Christ's heir, rich. This foundation built on Matthew 6:33, which says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness." Those are instructions. But then there's the promise that all these things thereafter shall be added unto you. That means spiritually, mentally, emotionally, relationally, physically, and financially. Now, I don't beat people over the head with the Bible. That's not my message. My message is simply saying, here's my authentic story. And because of this experience, here's what gives me my undergirding and my confidence in how I walk. Because as an heir, I know that my father has it all. And because he has it all, just like we as parents, we have it all for our children, we are not going to release the keys to the car if they can't drive.
Right.
What that means is that we just have to grow our capacity. And so my endeavor in every relationship I engage in is to help a person to truly see their identity in something much greater than who they are today, and simply say, now make the commitment to invest in yourself so that you can increase your value. And consequently, those things that you desire will then be able to be funded because of the value that you're now putting forth in the world. And so it excites me
Good.
to hear how you go about engaging people and how you can identify and how you get excited about it, because this is the only space in which we can actually engage with someone, hear that they have a problem, and are in a position to actually provide a solution and walk beside them to actually change their situation. Isn't that true?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And, I'm sitting here just thinking about that time in my life. I get emotional just thinking about it because I truly did not believe in myself at all. And I just think about how my husband was so steadfast in his belief in me. And had he not had been, where would our life be today? And the hundreds upon hundreds of people whose lives have been made different or better simply because I stuck it out and I became the person that I needed to be to help them in some capacity. So it's just that ripple effect. When you think about that, like that is just, it's so incredible. It really is.
Incredible and incredibly rewarding.
Yes,
You know,
100%.
the thing that I am addressing, and really why I want to have this conversation with you, is the fact that 77 million baby boomers are retiring and facing a cash flow danger. And 66 out of 100 people age 65 earn less than $30,000 retirement. And 47% of people say if they had a $400 emergency, they'd have to sell something or borrow money to address it. And 68% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. And so I wrote Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth, to address that cash flow danger that no one is talking about. And I wrote it after going through an experience where I was the CFO of an Inc. 500 fast growing company 2 years in a row. I was in that role after being a wealth advisor at UBS, licensed 766 life repair annuity mortgage real estate, built a book of business. But in that business, I realized that I was limited in what I could do in order to truly help people, because I was working with people that had to have it in order for me then to provide something guidance.
Right.
Well, because I came into the industry on my own financial terms, because of what I did as an entrepreneur, when I got into the business, I realized that my hands were tied when it came to actually helping people to get to what they really wanted. And that whole idea of investing for the long term would never work. Today, the average 401k for someone age 65 is under 300,000, and the median is 89,000. And when those numbers being what they are, people are limited and oftentimes ignorant to their actual situation, and definitely ignorant to what their options are, because they're so few and far between. And so, therefore, people fall into a state of hopelessness. And that's where I say that we have an obligation to really engage, especially based on our backgrounds and our experiences, because we know that for the most part, if someone is not introduced to something that can give them opportunity to control their cash flow, that can allow them to capitalize on their relationships, that can allow them to just grow their capacity and not have a limit on their age and their impact that they can make, and they can do it by collapsing time frames. If someone doesn't have something that presents those type of options, then inevitably what they're doing is, for the most part, is just waiting for the time to tick away. And
Right.
so the question that I ask people is, how how do you want to look, feel, and live the last 10 years of your life? And based on that question, it brings about conversations that I know people are not having with the people they're oftentimes seeking advice from. Because
Mm.
once again, they can only work with that which one has.
Right. Absolutely.
What are your thoughts? What are you seeing as you're moving through with your foot still in the W-2 side and then seeing your peers and what they're facing?
Oh my goodness. I live it every day. I mean, the ladies that work alongside me, they're both in a position where their husbands are retiring like together and, they're really, looking at their accounts and what they've saved so far and what they have to do and talk about Social Security and all those things. And, to your point, like one of the things that I say all the time, the reason why I became an entrepreneur and specifically why I chose to align myself with the company that we're aligned with was it made so much sense, truly. And when you are talking about, being a financial advisor, like that's what we do every day is we take people's cash and we invest it into stocks, bonds, mutual funds, alternative investments, whatever it is, according to their investment plan. But if they don't have it, you can't invest it. So with what we do, just making that decision um, begins to create the asset, right? So like our business is the asset that pays us on a perpetual basis. And it's absolutely staggering to think what my life would be like today if I didn't have that. And with the economy being what it is and how it's been for the last 4 years, my employer is not giving me a raise to keep up with the cost of living. They're just not. So most people that are out there require about $1,100 to $1,500 a month just to live the same lifestyle that they were living a couple of years ago. And who's going to give you an extra $1,500 a month? Nobody, because the employers are feeling it too, right? So it's like this double-edged sword. So if you aren't doing something for yourself, then, I strongly urge you to do that because nobody's coming to save us, I mean, truly, like we have to be our own advocate. And it just creates a sense of peace because I grew up in a very, very, very dysfunctional home and dysfunctional in every way, but financially extremely dysfunctional. And I remember growing up and thinking like, I never wanted to be that way. I never wanted to have my electric turned off or my water turned off or have to go to a pawn shop. Like these are things that were very regularly occurring experiences in my childhood. And when I look back at that, those types of things, those can either make or break a person because either you go down and you repeat those same mistakes or you know exactly how you don't want to be. And I know exactly that I didn't want to be that way. So, having this, a wonderful career and a wonderful job, that's incredible. But most people can't live just off of their paycheck anymore. You need something extra. So having a business that allows us to have financial peace, people like to fling around the term financial freedom. I say financial peace because it's having peace to know that I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, that I'm able to, send my daughter to school without debt, that I'm able to, not worry about how my bills are going to get paid. But because that wasn't always my life, there was a time when I found the company that we are aligned with, it was during COVID, and my husband had lost his job due to COVID. And I actually had taken a few years away from the financial services industry. I thought that I would be retired forever. I was going to stay home with my babies and, I had a home-based business and everything was great. But then COVID happened and it turned everything upside down. There was a lot of uncertainty, there was instability, and we were really we were out a lot of income when my husband just lost his job. So I went back to the financial services industry, but there was a time when we were literally living on our credit cards. And the stress, I cannot even begin to tell you, and there's people that are probably out there listening that that stress because that's how, unfortunately, you have to put food on the table or put gas in the car. I mean, there was a time when I was literally rolling coin to put gas in my car. So I've been there, and what I can say is that it's hard, but guess what? It's hard making a change in your life and doing something that's different and doing something that might not feel like it's what's normal for you. If, stretching yourself and becoming better or different or, finding that belief in yourself, like that was really hard for me. But living the life that I have today is so much easier than the hard when I didn't have what we needed. So it's like you choose your hard, I mean, it's going to be hard either way, but how can you become better? How can you have more peace? How can you, help and serve others? So it just opens up doors when you, like you said, you're the asset. When you focus on yourself and becoming the best version that you can possibly be, it's not just about being a good employee or being a good entrepreneur. It's about becoming the best you, and that flows into every aspect of your life.
Well said. And it's that type of awareness that oftentimes people just don't have enough uh, energy, if you will, to even think about the possibilities because so much is coming at us. The great thing about having those experiences of loss or going through things, number one, we know it's for your good. And number two, what it does, it gives you an opportunity to have something that you can speak to because of how you grew through it. You had to become someone to get through that season.
Right.
For me, as a CFO of an Inc. 500 fast growing company 2 years in a row, after the second time we were recognized, we shut our doors 90 days of that second recognition. And you're talking about an experience of going from a high down to a low. Now, fortunately, in that space, I thought I was still good because I had come to Jacksonville, Florida, sight unseen when my daughter was born because all I wanted to do was be the dad that was around. But when that job loss took place, and then people in my 40 unit apartment complex started losing their jobs at the same time, well, then that which I had in place started to be impacted.
Mm.
I carried it for year one. I then carried it for year two. I'm still good. But by year three, that's when I realized, wait a minute, my net worth is not going to save me. I've got to have cash flow. And Susan, I went from the experience of going from 5 million to zero, from a
Mm.
6,000 square foot home to a 10 by 12 room with no running water. But it
Mm.
was in that season that I was able to have an awareness that I had some insights that no one else would have because I not only climbed and had the financial success to walk away, that I went into the financial services and saw what people were really dealing with, realizing that they just did not have enough to be able to get to that experience. And then to be a C-level suite guy, have great success, and have that job loss, which then gave me perspective on what happens when people lose their job. And I said, well, what helped me to navigate? It was the fact that I always had entrepreneurship as a foundation of my wealth building plan. And
Mm.
that's what led me to write Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth, which is a principle centered, biblically based leadership program focused on personal growth and entrepreneurship, specifically addressing the cash flow danger that no one is talking about. The fact that 77 million baby boomers are retiring and facing the cash flow danger. And I cover leadership is the answer, the cash flow danger. It happened to me, become an entrepreneur, choosing the right entity, raising capital, asset protection, protecting financial privacy, reducing your taxes, retirement planning, residual income retirement planning, estate planning, and life is rich. Because there's only two ways to increase cash flow: either increase your income, decrease your expenses. Well, the two biggest expenses that people pay are ignorance and taxes.
Mm.
So by simply bringing forth the insight of saying, hey, if you're a W-2 employee and you don't have a business, you're paying at least 40% more in taxes. So here's what we can do. Here's what I experienced 9 years ago when I was speaking at an event about my book, and I was invited to hear about a company that I'd known of for over 20 years. I just never looked at it because of how people approached me. The way they approached me gave me the impression as if it was an MLM or direct sales company, and I wasn't interested in that. I wasn't against the model, but as a successful entrepreneur, I knew business models: business to business to consumer, business to consumer, direct to consumer. And I knew that I didn't want to be in a situation where there weren't really real products and real services that people were buying independent of the incentive of making money.
Mm,
So when I saw this presentation, Susan, I immediately said it. Number one, it wasn't the company's fault. It wasn't the company's fault how I received the information. It was people, because you bring whoever you are to whatever you do, and people were misrepresenting the company. But when I heard it the right way, I immediately said, wait a minute, I think this fits my program. Because I was already teaching people that finances are 80% behavior, 20% know how. I said, if I can get you to shop online, that means you're looking at your expenses. And if you're looking at your expenses, you're able to track your expenses.
right.
But tracking is the first step to creating a budget. So I opened up a shopping account. I made the initial purchase based upon what was there to give me the greatest value, where I could save up to 38%. And then from there, I got a chance to validate the pricing of the products, the cost of shipping, the quality of products, and customer service. Knowing that if I could prove those four things, I would have a great tool to show people how to implement the things in which I teach in my book. So I'm always trying to get people to understand that the ask is one based upon helping people to really just make smart decisions with their dollars and cents. Now, you as a mom with six, I know you can really appreciate this and actually go into detail. I just simply ask people, take what you currently have, set it to the side, and try this.
Right.
And give us an opportunity to show you how to save money, save time, get better quality products. Recognize that there's a 90-day money back guarantee, there's no risk of loss, and see whether or not you can experience what we've experienced over the time in which we've been shopping. And if not, no harm, no foul. You at least tried it. You got a chance to see. You took the invitation to come inside to explore. And if for whatever reason you don't want to make that switch, if it's not compelling enough for you to do so, no worries. At least we cared enough about it to give you information. But I didn't get to that point, Susan, until 3 years after I was already shopping. And my trigger was I read the lung damage study that said
Mm,
cleaning your home once a week with certain products, bleach, ammonia, scrubbing bubbles, tub and towel, pine sol, Lysol, Fabuloso, and seeing that it had the equivalent impact on one's lung capacity as smoking a pack of cigarettes per day for 20 years. This
mhm.
impacted me so much because I'm from Georgia, a small town where I heard growing up, if it doesn't smell like bleach, it's not clean.
Right. Right. Yes.
Well,
I heard
I'm,
that too.
there
Yes.
you go. Well, my mother-in-law is a breast cancer survivor. My father-in-law passed away from pancreatic cancer. My
Mm.
grandmother passed January 12th, 2020 after bowel cancer. And my wife's sister passed November 1st, 2020 after bowel cancer. For
Oh,
me, it was strictly about me saying, wait a minute. Fortunately, my kids have been exposed to something new, but I just felt compelled and obligated to start telling others who may have never been exposed to what I was exposed to or could not didn't receive it the way that I could deliver it.
right.
And so that's what drives my reason for speaking about this the way that I do. But I want to bring it back to you when it comes to you managing a household. How have you found, or what do you think about what I said about the possibility of saving money, saving time? Have you experienced that as a mom of six?
Oh my goodness. Yes. So, like you, I had heard about the store for many years and 6.5 years to be exact. And I was a hard no because I am all about budgeting. I was like the super shopper at all the memberships and all the stores and the coupons. And, I thought that I was doing my best. And then in 2018, I came down with some autoimmune challenges and I started learning about, getting better products in your home and, how things that you put on your skin impacts your health just as much as things that you put in your body. So I started switching things out little by little. And what I found is that those products were really expensive. So when COVID happened, I had reached out to one of my friends to get a holistic acne treatment for my daughter. And that's when I really looked at the store and started shopping. And I was very, I was very, I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't going to hang out for long. I might shop for a month or two and let that be that. But I fell in love with everything, and what I have personally found is that, the products are better than what I was getting at Whole Foods or Target. The convenience convenience. I used to spend all my weekends, it's not just about the money that I save in my pocket, it's about the time that I would have to invest to go to Costco and go to Publix and go to Trader Joe's and go to all these different stores. So, I'm saving my time, and then everything, coming to my home in a couple of days. I place an order from my phone, it shows up on my doorstep. But it's the added value, that we get in the way of all the different services that are available, that we've been able to save just in the last 4 years over $14,000. So that alone is incredible. It's literally like giving yourself a raise. So, there are so many people out there that just don't know that there's a different way or a better way. And that's okay. I mean, we all come to our decisions in our own time. But what I will say is, you said it at the very beginning of the conversation, it's about being a broke skeptic, right? And it's so true. I was so opposed to doing something different because I just didn't know, right? You don't know what you don't know. So I'm extremely grateful that in that moment I was just open to taking a look, because it really has created, just, from the perspective of, saving money and saving time. There's no other store or any other way that I've come across that can help our family save, money like that, for sure.
Well, you spoke about raises, and I was running some numbers, and I said, for an extra $10,000, for someone to get that extra $10,000 in a raise, and assuming a 3% pay raise, that person today would have to have a salary of $333,333.
Incredible.
To
Yeah,
see an extra $10,000
right,
in there before taxes,
right.
the salary today has to be 333,333.
And that's just me as a customer, Nate. Like, that's not even me creating income. What I mean? That's literally me shopping as a customer. And then, creating income, that's a whole nother ball game, because the like we talked about earlier, everybody needs, especially in today's economy, everybody needs something a little extra. And, to create $10,000 that's life changing for people. Truly, when you talk about getting a raise and having to have it, like, who's making $300,000 a year? I mean, no, like, regular, standard job that I've ever come across. So I think that that's just truly incredible.
Mind blowing, isn't it?
It's mind blowing.
There's those numbers.
Truly, it,
And
it
Susie,
really is.
that's really what I focus on, is saying awareness and then assessment.
Right,
So with the life expectancy of women being 81 and men being 76, and I take off 10 years, so we're talking about 71 and 66 from a
mm,
planning standpoint. Then what I'm simply saying, well, how old are you today and how long do you have to get there? That gives you a number. And then the next thing is, well, how much money per month do you need or want in order to fund FUND the way you want to look, the way you want to
right,
feel, the way you want to live? And once that number is shared, then it's a matter of, well, let's see what that really looks like. And what people don't know, because they're not running those numbers, is that if you say 5,000 a month, which is a common number that people tell me, well, that's like 1.2 million that you need to have put away, assuming a 5% rate of return.
right,
Say 10,000, okay, 2.4 million. So we know that for most part, people don't have that. And even if they start off on the right track, life happens. Life
right,
disruptions happen.
right,
Job loss, divorce, market crash, illness, things inevitably happen that will rock one's world. And that's why the emphasis on cash flow is so critical, because the bills don't care about your life conditions. The bills will continue to come day in and day out.
right,
And so being able to offer up an opportunity that one can have a distinct plan to get to a number and have that backed by actual data, where one can actually talk about it not in fuzzy math or circles on the board, but actually say, here's the game plan and here's how we can accomplish this.
right.
That right there is so rewarding, and it taps into the four things I believe that people really want when they do get to that state of life. And that is, they want money so they don't have any worries. Number two, they want their health so that they're mobile, vibrant, feel good, look good, energetic. Number three, they want purpose. They actually want to feel good about what they're doing, the impact that they're making, especially if they're older. They want to know that the life that they've lived still has value. And number four, time to do what they want to do, when they want to do it, for as long as they want to do it. And because of those things, I believe if people began with the end in mind, well, then you can cancel out a lot of things that are wasted time.
Right.
What do you think?
Oh, I think that you hit the nail right on the head, and truly being able to give somebody a game plan like that, right? You're reverse engineering the outcome, but in the most realistic way. Because how is somebody going to create $1 million in order to generate the income per month that they need? It's nearly impossible for people to have that much money. So it goes back to, when you were a financial advisor, right? And you lock yourself out from really helping people because they first need to have the income to be able to help them. So
Yeah.
here we're able to give people a clear, concise roadmap with zero. I mean, there's almost like no skin in the game. You know what I mean? And to me, that when I saw that, that was like the aha moment. I was like, what? I mean, there's no like huge investment. And, I mean, if anyone's listening that's a brick and mortar entrepreneur, to become a brick and mortar entrepreneur, you need to invest tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have friends that are brick and mortar entrepreneurs that if they have a bad month, they're having to take money out of their bank account to the tune of ten to $20,000 a month just to keep their doors open. But here it's different, it's a much different thing when you can own a business that is real and stable and gives you an opportunity to truly make an impact in the lives of others. And when you can do that, with that old saying, it's when you help enough people, like your goals and dreams, just they end up coming true just because you're putting the emphasis on helping others. So I think that, that is like one of the most powerful pieces of this is that we're able to actually show people exactly what they need to do in order to realize the dreams that they have for themselves.
And that entrepreneur that is doing business in a traditional way, my background is such that I've done the things that many times people try, and I've done those things successfully. When I left the military in the 90-day window, I knew that if I didn't take action right then, I would not have a history of income that I would need in order to get financing to buy real estate.
Mm.
I read Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant, pulled a couple of concepts from the book, and in my terminal leave, which was a 90-day window transition from the military, I acquired over $1 million in assets in 90 days, with the
Wow.
largest being a 40-unit apartment complex.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
what set everything in motion for me. So I've done the real estate, and that's that story. But I've also owned a tax franchise. So I've done that story. I've also been a wealth advisor. I've also climbed the corporate ladder to a C-level suite. And so when I talk to people who are considering different things, I'm able to really say with objectivity, well, here's what you want to consider, and here are the pros and the cons. And I can say, yes, you can be successful in each of these lanes, but here's what it's going to require. And then to top it all off, as God would have it, July 8th, 2015, leaving LA Fitness, I pass a pink Cadillac. I don't see the person driving the vehicle. I stop the person, give them a copy of this original book, and say, here, read this. If you get any value from it, you can pay for it later. She goes left, I go right. She contacts me telling me that she read it. She shared it with 30 of her directors. They all wanted it. From there, she has to do a conference call with 200 of her ladies. I said, bring the husbands on. After that, she has to do a live event. And then she pays $4,500 working for 90 days as her coach. Well, we developed a friendship. In less than a year, meeting at the stop sign, we married. Well, lo and behold, that gives me another perspective because that beautiful lady was in a company for 26 years and is still recognized in that company as the youngest Black woman in the history of the company to be at the top. And through that experience, when she hired me, I asked her one question, which was, do you want to create a legacy? She said, yes. I did the due diligence on her company, reviewed everything, came back to her and said, in spite of your great success, you won't have what you desire because you don't own anything. And so the thing is, that's good is that you hit the top so young that in the next 4 years, you're going to be able to retire, be fully vested, get that income stream, but still be young enough to go do something else that can give you what you really want. But she delayed taking that recommendation by 1 year, and it cost her $250,000 for not executing on that plan.
Wow.
But I'm glad to say that because we have that experience as husband and wife where we know that type of business model, we're able to know, she's able to also know the difference, and we can actually speak to people distinctly about different models and different opportunities and do so objectively with some things behind us to say, well, we've done that and we've done it successfully, but here's what you don't know, and here's why we made this decision here. And that's what excites me, Susan, about being able to engage with people in today's time, and why I feel like we have a responsibility to, because we can give people access to a way to create income that's sustainable, predictable, repeatable, and growable. Sustainable,
Absolutely.
predictable, repeatable, and growable. And now more so than ever, with jobs being lost and people not being able to retire comfortably, they need a solution. And more importantly, they need people they can trust. And my
Right.
reason for having a conversation with you is because we're these people as professionals that happen to have made a decision of how we're going to spend our money. And wow, they give us an opportunity to share with others. And if we do so, and those people decide to do what we are doing with our money, well, then they give us a thank you check.
Right.
And that right there is, I think that's fair.
Yeah. And people are doing it all the time, right? I mean, it's like you get Hello Fresh. Guess what? You refer a friend and they send you 25, they send them 25. People don't understand that they're doing it anyway, and most of the time they're doing it for free, right? I remember vividly when Instapots became famous, and I'll never forget, I saw a post on Facebook and somebody talked about her Instapot, and she had 50 people asking for links, and the link was to Amazon, and 50 of her friends went and bought Instapots, and she got this much money. So we do it all the time. We tell people about our favorite, hairdressers and restaurants and movie. And it's a blessing because they love us so much and they value us so much as a customer that they send us a thank you check. And it's like that's incredible, because why not, pay it forward? We're finding tremendous value. Like, why wouldn't you want to tell somebody about it?
Yeah. I say caring is sharing, and we don't buy anything, we don't sell, we're not distributors. And that's the thing that people oftentimes will, from the outside looking in, make assumptions. As I'm like, be curious
Right.
enough to get the information. There's no reason in today's time to ever stay ignorant when all the information is available and you can actually get questions answered. There's no reason for it.
Yeah, it's so true. It really is. And
you know.
I love it.
So, well, listen, Susan, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm so delighted that we finally got a chance just to connect. I'm excited about being able to see you next month. Um,
Hopefully, we should get together before then, I think. I would,
absolutely.
we say it all the time, but when we're done here, we're gonna put a date on the calendar because it's
Let's
all
do it.
overdue, for
Yeah, we're
sure.
close enough. We're close
I
enough.
know.
Yeah, we might as well let's make that happen. But also, I'm excited about seeing you in September and in Dominican Republic.
Yes, that's gonna be a lot of fun. I can't wait.
Absolutely. Any parting words or anything that you want to close out with?
Well, again, I just thank you so much for having me here this evening. And, like you said, it's be curious. You never know, you never know what you don't know. So, just having a conversation, asking a question just might be, the very thing that changes the rest of your life. So it's fun when that happens.
Absolutely, absolutely. Listen, everyone, thank you once again. I thank you guys for your attention. Listen, reach out to Susan, myself directly. We absolutely have a desire to ensure that you got accurate information so you can make informed decisions for you and your family, and recognize that regardless, the time is going to tick away. So do something today that your future will absolutely appreciate you for, because the seed today is for the harvest in the future. What seeds are you planting right now? Remember, alignment before assignment, you are the asset, and how to think versus what to think. This is Nate Scott, author of Life is Rich, How to Create Lasting Wealth. Take care and be blessed.
Thank you.